In this video, I'll be going through the steps on how to install this Node authentication application. So if you need to build a website with user authentication, then this is a very good starting point. I took this application as a starting point and added features I required. So let's have a look how to install it first, and then we'll go through the code. And here I have freshly installed Ubuntu 18.04 with my favorite OS codename, Bionic Beaver. I have installed all the updates, but nothing else was installed on this server. To do the setup, I will be using Ansible. So Ansible will be installing the PostgreSQL application and setting up the database and tables, in this case just one table, users table. And after that, Ansible will be installing Nodejs. So let's have a look. So first thing to do is install the Ansible. Also, I need to mention that I will be installing this application on this server. Normally you wouldn't use Ansible to install applications on remote servers, but it can be used on a local host as well. So once the Ansible is installed, we will need to update Ansible's host file, which contains names of the servers you want to install things on. In this case, it will be this server, so it will be localhost. So if we go to the bottom of the file, add these two lines, and then change the remote IP to localhost. Let's save the file. Next thing is to generate SSH key. In this case, I'm not going to set up any passwords, just general SSH key is good. And then for Ansible to function properly, we need to install these Python packages. As you can see, for the remote install, it can actually be done remotely. And then, after the packages are installed, there's another modification which is required for the local install. So we need to go in. Actually, we need to clone the repo. So let's start with that. Then we need to go in the cloned directory and go in Ansible directory, where we will be modifying the Ansible Playbook. And the only modification in this case is, where is it? Need to add this line which tells Ansible that it is running on localhost. So once that is done, we can execute the Ansible Playbook. This is the password which has root privileges on this box. Ansible Playbook is now finished, and we can see that there was 0 failed. Everything should be okay. And the next thing, we need to go back to the root directory of the Node application and install all the dependencies required by this Node application. All the required Node packages are now installed, and next thing is to add root user we will be authenticating against in the web app. So I've put together this little script, and we need to enter the admin user's username. I'm not going to be original and just go with admin. Let's enter password. And this Node script actually added the username, password, and the admin, basically the account type, which is admin, to the database. And as we can see here, this is the encrypted password. So next step is actually, so we can, if running node setup.js was successful, then there is no need for all this stuff, and we can straight away jump to actually starting up the application. Okay, so the application is running. Let's just get rid of that, and let's open it up. So as you can see, I've not done any visual modifications to the original app, and we can now log in as admin user. And these are the couple of things I threw in just because I was actually learning how to use Node, and to be honest, it might be useful for someone as well. So this thing actually pulls in the users table and displays all the rows in a users table. In this case, we only have one user, which is the admin user. So that's it, and we got a logout button. So this sign out thing as well was added by me, which basically stays there for a couple of seconds and then redirects user back to the login page. So let's try non-existing user, and as we can see, it didn't even give the error message, just dropped back to the login prompt. So let's try the register user. So register user actually in this case on this form requires for username to be email address. So if we add something like a user, which is not a valid format of the email address, and then let's say add valid password, we should get an error message. Here we go. If we add a valid user email address in a user field and add a wrong password, so the passwords won't match, we should get password is invalid error message. And if we add valid user and password, we should get a successful registration and redirection to the login page again. So now if we log in admin user and go to show all users, we can see there's a second user in the database. So let's get out, and if we log in as this user, we are actually directed to a different page, which is like a general users page, as we can see here. And I haven't added any buttons here, so if we run logout, it should redirect us back to the login page. So now let's have a quick look at the code. I'll start off with Ansible. So this is the main Ansible playbook, and it does two things. It creates and configures the database and installs Node. So let's have a look at database creation part. So there's this script which will be used by the playbook as well to actually set up users table, to configure it with the required fields, and this is the main installation page. So it installs all the dependencies, creates the database, and creates database user, adds roles to it, tests it, and so on. Then if we go to variables, these are the variables you can change. Actually, these three are definitely needed. I'm not 100% sure that was part of the testing. So this is the user the script creates, and this user will have full rights to this database which script created as well. And this is the database password for this user. And then we have another script. Let's quickly have a look. To install Node. Quite simple. We are installing version 10, so it's just basically adding the repository and then installing Node. So next thing is we'll have a look at the actual application. First thing we will have a look at is this setup script, which you need to change user, host, database and password based on the whatever you originally set up in the Ansible. And it's quite a simple script. It gets username, password twice, compares the password, see if both passwords matched, and then adds it into the database. And now let's have a look at the actual application. So we're using handlebars for the HTML codes, so to call it. So this is the page I created for registration. It's just a basic form. Then logoff page, which has the redirection to the root. Then we got home page, which is used by general users logging on, and admin page, and the error pages. So in the case, let's say if I wanted to go to non-existent page, we get page not found. So this can be modified to whatever people want. Also, if we go to, actually let's have a look in roots. So let's say we want to go to this home, but we are not signed in. We should get a little unauthorized page as well. And let's have a look at the roots. So the original roots were login, admin panel, and I think these other roots, which actually I think are good for if you're building a web app. So I have added this all users, which actually pulls in the users table from the database. Then I have added the home and a little redirection. When people go to the root of the application, it redirects them to the login page. and then this is where the error page gets rendered. So this for handlebars. And then let's have a look at the. Let's start off with users. Actually, let's just quickly jump back to roots. So if you want the page to be displayed for registered users, then where is it? You just need to basically add another page, and this field is required. So it requires login. So if the person's logged in, they will have access to this page. And then I execute users home. So if we go to users folder and then index.js and where is it, home? So here we go. It just renders the home page, which is this here. Then the biggest pain was the user registration, because this module used to talk to the database is actually async. So I had some troubles getting it working, but actually managed to do it in the end. So I'm just using this async function, which waits for the return of certain queries. And also we can see here, this is the validation of the user form. So it needs to be an email. It's like a built-in function for this thing. Then we have the minimum required password length and the comparison between both password boxes. And then we have another validation, which is when users register, it actually checks if that user is already in the database or not. And that gets done around here. So when the code is executed against the database, if it returns 1, then the user already exists, which means we get this error message sent and we get redirected to the register page. Okay, so in the monitoring, I added this, nice and easy. It basically just runs this query against the database and displays it. I've not added any styling or anything. It comes out raw JSON format. Okay, so is there anything else I need to go through? I think actually that is about it. So I will be adding the URLs to the repos, to the original repo and to my repo in description. And I hope it helps someone out. Thank you very much for watching.